I'm James Taylor. Let's model this head in Maya. We're going to focus on the face area and most notably the eye region and the mouth region where the most animation happens. To do that, we're going to define our topology along these lines. As I did with the body, I'm going to model on top of image planes, and I've lined them up using my guidelines. The big difference is we need these to match up as closely as possible, so we really have to take time to nitpick. You'll see I already have a placeholder head. I created it based on the previous reference. This will make matching the scale between my old reference and my new reference much easier. So I import the new reference and match it to the blockout head. And in Maya 2015, I can just use my move, rotate, and scale tools to do this. And I'll switch the side view camera to a right view and import the image plane. I mentioned with the image planes that precision is very important on the head. So I'm double checking that I've got a match between my image planes by using polygon planes to just create comparison points. Now, once that's handled, we start modeling, and I will start with a cylinder, and I'm going to place it over the eye and give it 12 subdivisions on its axis and 2 subdivisions on its cap. And then I'll delete all the faces except for the top cap. So it's positioned over the eye in both the front and the side view. And then I'll duplicate it and move it over the mouth. And these 2 cylinder caps are going to be the basis for our head. So let's look at the mouth. I'm going to grab that inner ring of verts, and that's going to represent the outer edges of the lips. And then this outer ring is going to represent the shape of the laugh line and a lot of the animation points around the mouth. And this topology is built with animation in mind. If we think about that wireframe we looked at the very beginning, those are the 2 sets of radial muscles that we're creating right now. Okay, for the lips, I'm going to get rid of these 2 sets of triangle edges, so I'm left with that middle edge. And then I'll use multi-cut to cut straight up and down. So I'm creating these straight lines from top to bottom. And basically, I've got 3 rows of verts: the top lip, the middle of the lips, and the bottom lip. So now I want to start positioning these. This second row is very close to the center. I need to move it in. And on the top lip, that vert sits higher than the center point. This is what's going to create the divot for the philtrum. I'll tweak this center row so that it follows the middle line of the lips. I'll tweak the bottom row a little bit. But this third row over here usually needs to come in a little bit closer than that. And then I'll have to adjust it to match the reference in that area. I'll tilt the corner of the mouth down a little bit. That's a very standard posture. And then I'm going to look at the lips in the side view. And that middle row comes all the way forward to the extents of the lip on the side view. And similarly, I can pull this vert forward to right under the nose. This vert comes forward, it's right on the corner of the nose, and that'll help guide me in the position of the rest of these. The outside ring, again, is the laugh line, which is going to stick fairly close to the mouth when we get down to this lower portion. Now, this second row placement is extremely crucial. It's almost as far forward as this center row. And in the side view, you can see how close they are together. Make sure you have that kind of relationship between the first and the second row. So the third row comes forward, and this outer corner is usually really easy to place because we'll have the corner of the mouth very visible in the side view. And now I can start to tweak positions. So we'll bring in the outer edges of the lips to match the reference. And this part should be pretty easy because we're very literally matching the outlines of the lips here. Now at the middle of the lips, I'll generally position those verts in the perspective view because I need to push them both back and inwards towards the center of the mouth. And then I'll select these edges and connect components to add another row in here. And I can use my transform components to push these rows out so that they inflate. And that gives us a lot of the roundness that we need in the lip area. And we can place those rows in the side view pretty accurately. Now we're left with some triangles at the corner of the mouth, and I'll just collapse those to get rid of it. And then I'll switch to my smooth proxy mode. I'll hit 3 and make a few adjustments to the mouth. And then it's going to be time to move on to the eyes. We'll start with the inner ring on the eyes, and that's going to match the edges of the eyeball. So we can just line it up to the whites of the eye in our front view. And then similar to what I did with the lips, I'll just connect straight up and down. And then I'll look at the side view. And when we're placing the verts in the side view, the center comes all the way forward to the center of the eyeball, and we can find the outer corner most easily, and then we just kind of split the difference between those other two rows. Now the inside of the eye, we can't see from the side view. We're going to have to place that from the perspective view, and the inside corner of the eye does not go as far back as the outside corner of the eye. Okay, this outer ring is the ocular orbit. It's the bone that surrounds the eye. The upper portion of this is the easiest to find. We just trace along the eyebrow above the eye. The lower portion sits fairly close to the eye. And then when we place it in the side view, we again line it up based on those eyebrows. That'll make things pretty easy to find. Now, the verts on this row that are on the inside of the eye, those sit on the side of the nose. And the verts on the outside sit very close to the eyeball, so there's not much distance there. And then the lower verts, I'll just move forward a little bit. I'll hit 3 to smooth the eye the same way that I did the mouth, and then I'll grab the edges around the eye and use my crease tool to crease them. And that'll give me a sharper shape, and I'll just tweak that a little bit. And now I'm going to cut in a row very close around the eye using my Insert Edge Loop tool. And this is the eyelid. We can match it up to a reference pretty easily by just looking for the pink around the eye and placing this row accordingly. I'll cut in another edge using Insert Edge Loop, and this is going to trace around the outside of the eyelid, where the eyelid folds back into the skin of the face. This line is pretty easy to find in your reference. It's that dark line that overlaps the top of the eyeball. The bottom part, not so important. And now for the nose, I'll make another cylinder. I'll tilt it up same way I did before. This one is going to have 8 subdivision axes. And I'm going to place it around the nose in the front view. And we want to make sure that it matches up to the outside edge of the nostril and the very bottom of the nose. And then I'll pull this middle set of rows forward, and I'm starting to create the depth for the nose. I'll delete the interior edges and connect in such a way that I end up with 4 faces here. And now I can add some volume to the bulb of the nose. And I'll subdivide down to the bottom front to pull that forward. And now the shape of the nose is really starting to take form. I'll also make this connection down in the corner here, just connecting these 2 verts. This is going to be important later on. Right now, I'll grab these edges at the top and just extrude them back to create the bridge of the nose. And we'll snap that outer point there to the corresponding point on the eye region. This is where we're going to start to merge these together. Now, I'll grab these edges on the bulb of the nose and I'll connect them. Now we've turned that area into some quads, and it's also defining more of the bottom of the nose. I'll add a point to this triangle here. This is going to be a very important quad. This is the corner of the nose that meets the laugh line, so the mouth is going to attach here. And now I'm going to smooth the nose and start building the nostril. Remember, you can see the nostril in the side view. The bottom of the nose isn't flat. So I'll just extrude. I'll inset a face on the corner there, and I'll start to position that nostril hole in the front and the side views. And I'll also start to position the septum. Remember, it's very narrow. We can see it in the side view. And I'll make some changes to the shape. It's easier to connect things up when they're not smooth. And then I'll grab that face, the nostril, and just extrude it up and inwards to create the negative space that I need. And now comes the fun part, combining and blending these different areas together. So I'll start with the nose and mouth. I'll move the mouth out of the way. And then I want to look at the topology on the nose. I have these 3 verts to just 2 verts on the mouth side. So I'm going to cut a new set of edges in here using my multi-cut. That'll become the philtrum, and I can merge these verts together. So far, so good. I'll cut another row horizontally across the top of the mouth, and I'll subdivide it in such a way that I'm basically adding a whole nother row up there. And I can snap that new vert that I just added to the edge of the nose, and now I can extrude straight out from the corner of the nose there. This is going to be the fold that really helps us to define the laugh line. So you'll see that I'm taking time to place it very carefully. I'll continue that line downwards by extruding from the sides of the laugh line in the mouth area, and then I'll select under the chin and extrude down, and I'll start to build out the mass of the chin here. We'll see that I have to subdivide in the actual chin and pull those edges out to create the volume of the chin. That leaves me with some unterminated edges, and what I'll do is I'll just continue those back. So I'll cut along this point, and then I'm going to grab this edge and extrude all the way back, and this is going to define my jaw. So I'm going all the way back to the corner right under the ear where the ear and the jaw meet to define my jawline. And then I'll extrude straight up, kind of hit right above the ear, and I'll add a couple subdivisions in there so that I can shape it better from the front view. And now I'll extrude that entire edge forward. And I'll have to cut a subdivision into the jaw to match that up so that my topology will fit. But now I'm defining more of the cheek area using my front and my side reference. So we need to fill this area in, and I'm not going to continue from the jaw. Now I'm going to grab the edges under the eye and extrude those out in a radial fashion. So my main concern right now is transitioning between the eye and the nose area. I'll weld that vert at the top of the eye and nose area, and I'll move this set of faces in such a way that I can now merge that vert to the nose and then fill that hole. And now I can start to merge to the outside cheek area and just kind of flatten that row of verts so that it'll be easier to integrate into the rest of the cheek. Next, I'll grab the edges coming out from the mouth like I did before and just extrude again. And I'll start by connecting the bottommost extrusion here. I'll just bridge it across to the corresponding face. And then I'll do these two diagonal bridges. I deleted that one face there to make things easier. And I'm going to massage my verts around a little bit. I want to spread them out. That'll make it easier to control both the anatomy and the topology before I start filling other holes in. And I'll start down here on the chin. I'll cut in another set of rows and just merge those two sets of verts. And I'm basically continuing that laugh line all the way around so that it goes from the side of the nose all the way under the mouth. That leaves me with this obvious hole over here on the jaw that I can just use the fill hole on. And now I have these two empty areas that I have to fill in on the cheek. I'll start by grabbing these two edges on the cheek and then collapsing them together, which will turn that 5-sided opening into a 4-sided face that we can just easily fill. And now I've got to take care of this area above the nose, and this is a pretty critical area. So I'll pull this vert up and to the left, and I'll see that now I've got two edges that I can bridge together to create a nice quad in that region. So everything is connected, but we've got some triangles here. So I'm going to collapse a few edges, and we'll see that if we collapse them the way that I just did, we get rid of all the triangles and we're left with only quads. And now we're in this situation where we need to move our verts around to create proper anatomy. But I get some lumpiness here because of the double set of edges I created to define the laugh line. And that double row is important for animation, but it's not working here. So I'm going to select this edge ring and then collapse all those edges together. Now I'll cut in these extra edges under the nose because I need some of the detail that I had before. I'll collapse that extra edge and then I'll just take that vert up in the corner here and either merge it up to the neighbor to the top left. And now our topology is mostly done, so it's time to tweak to match the likeness. So I'm paying very close attention to my reference to try and match things up. For example, I'm double checking the placement on the eyelids. I can see that his upper eyelid isn't far forward enough. And I'll actually have to cut in another set of subdivisions on the eyelid here so that I can push that up and back and actually create the area where the eyelid folds in back on itself. And now I'm going to turn to the corner of the lip and I'm going to try and capture the depth and the fold that's in that region. So I'll continue that line from the nose down. And I'll bring it into a point because I'm not going to deal with the topology yet. And then I'll tweak those two verts outside the corner of the mouth to start to create that overlap and that fold in that area. And you'll see that my camera is going crazy all over the place because I need to view this from as many possible views to see what the shape is looking like. So when you're modeling, you should never have your camera static when you're trying to capture a likeness. You need to move the camera around so that you can see your object in 3D from as many angles as possible. Here I'm grabbing the edges in the center of the lips and using my crease tool to crease them. And now when I place these verts, they'll hold their position a little bit better than they did before. This is going to help me capture that kind of fold in that corner of the mouth. One thing that I haven't mentioned is that we need to be deleting history on our meshes regularly. So edit, delete by type history. That'll get rid of all the construction history on my object, and that can help with performance. Okay, now I'll connect some edges down at the bottom here, creating some diagonal edges. And then I'll select the diagonals going in the opposite direction and delete them. I'll end up with some nice quads that resolves the triangle that was under the cheek. Next, I'm going to refine this area. This particular area is going to be really important for capturing the likeness. So I'm going to play around with the subdivisions in here, and I'll cut in some extra subdivisions so that I can continue the line from the cheek area down into the jaw. That will allow me to round out the chin a little bit more, and it also cleans up our topology just a little bit. But we are left with some triangles that we're going to want to get rid of, so I'll cut diagonally down like that, and I'll select this edge and collapse it, and then I'll collapse the edge above it and delete the remaining triangle edge. Now I'll turn my attention to the forehead. I'm going to start with a radial extrusion from the eyebrow area. We'll see that I merge that there. I'll just extrude the rest of these out regularly and kind of spread them out, fan them out. And then I'll grab the edge in the center here, extrude that straight over, merge it together, and merge it to the bridge of the nose. And now I can just take all the edges on the top, extrude them straight up, and reposition them to match my reference. And I'll extrude up again so that I can get more of the curvature of the shape. And then I'll spend a lot of time massaging the verts so that they're evenly distributed. The forehead should be a very smooth area. Now it's time to focus on the likeness. I'll combine the two halves of my head together, merge the verts together in the center, and you'll note that I have a bunch of edges creased. That's what those bold edges are. You might want to try that depending on what your character looks like. Now that the topology is done, I can go through and make tweaks to the mesh without having to worry about the topology. So I'm looking very carefully at my reference. You'll see how closely zoomed in I am in both of the orthographic views. And right now, for example, I'm creating that upward motion under the lips to create the shadowing that I see there. And now I'm working on the nose to broaden it a little bit. Next, I'll create a sphere for the skull, and I'll choose a sphere that has about the same number of subdivisions as my head, and then I'll just snap points up to the forehead to match it up. And then once that's in place, I can adjust the size of it. We want to remember that the skull is bigger in the rear of the skull than it is at the front, so it tapers to the front a little bit. And then I can just extrude straight down and add a few subdivisions there to round things out. That's about all the detail we need for the head. Now the ear is another cylinder cap, and I'll just match it up in the side view. And I'll connect the ear on these verts, and we'll see that the ear sits flush with the cheek, and I'll extrude it backwards. And we want to remember that it's not even when we extrude it backwards. And then I can delete these faces on the head and extrude out from the corresponding faces on the ear. And then I'll take those resulting faces and just snap them to the head. And those are the points that I merged together to create the whole shape. And now I'll do some more asymmetry tweaking. So I'm going to move the eyes and the nose to match the reference better. I do this last because in case I need to make large structural changes to my mesh, it'll still be symmetrical and therefore easy to change. I'll make changes in the brow region. I'll make the chin more asymmetrical. The brow protrudes a little bit too much, so I'll push that back in. And I'll end up with this, which is a passable likeness. And now the modeling phase is done and I can move to next steps. I'm going to tackle UV unwrapping next. I'm James Taylor. Thanks for watching.